Hi, brothers and sisters in Christ. I hope you are doing very, very well. Today, I am so super excited because we are going to do an interview with Ross and Donna Nancarrow, the founders of Every Daughter Matters. So, Ross and Donna, welcome. It's really nice to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Adele.
It's really great to be here. Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's such an honor. Well, I think before we jump in, if you guys can just give me a little bit of a overview as to what is Every Daughter Matters and where it kind of started, just so that our audience can get a bit of a feel and understanding for it.
Sure.
Okay, so we've been working in Nepal for around about 10 years, and we kept hearing stories of girls being horribly abused and trafficked across borders. And we'd hear some really horrific stories, and so we were busy doing other work, but this kept coming up for us. And one day I was with a friend who we'd been sponsoring, and he said, "I'd like you to meet this man," and his name was Pastor Yubaraj. And I was chatting with them, and he said he had just started a booth in a bus park on the border of Nepal and India, and he in that bus park they were intercepting girls, and he said they were counselling. Girls were getting on the bus and taking flyers about anti-trafficking and giving them out to girls, and they'd started talking to quite a few girls. So when I was listening to him, I started to feel like, oh, maybe God would use us in this. And so I discussed with Ross and some other people, and it all got started from there.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Wow. And that was about, 10 years church-based work that you've been doing in Nepal, and then you added...
That's correct.
Yeah. Wow.
And involved in the church-based work, again, as we heard these stories, it just move your heart, keep you awake at night. Mm-hmm. And probably just got to that point where we couldn't say no, we couldn't stay on the sidelines. We knew the heart of Jesus is to actually stop this if we can and do something for these girls who are being abused. So, yeah, that's when we started Every Daughter Matters.
Oh, yeah, and it's so important because, as some of you might know, that, human trafficking, it's more than $1 billion industry, and it just keeps increasing. And, I think being aware of it is really important. But what I love about what Ross and Donna does is they intercept. So they try and stop it, where other organizations go in and rescue. Their main aim is to actually try and stop it before the harm gets done, so that these girls don't actually have to live with the trauma that so many others have to live with that have been rescued. And that is what I really appreciate about what you guys are doing.
When we understood there were about 20 to 25,000 Nepali young women trafficked every year across the Nepal-India border, we thought, well, how can you stop that? And they're being trafficked into organ trafficking, the sex industry, and slave labor. Really, it's one of either of those three, and sometimes all three for some girls. Horrific stories. But with that numbers, we thought, what can we do along that Nepal-India border? So we set up border surveillance, interception booths at the border crossings, and put staff into each of those. And that's where we really do the hard yards, do the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. So can you explain a little bit more as to what happens at these booths, particularly in Nepal?
Sure. So as people, it's an open border between Nepal and India that is open for Nepalis and Indians. It's coming, going, there's no stops, no checks. And there are police at most of those border crossings, but they're there to check for contraband and a few things like that, troublemakers and things like that. They're not necessarily looking out for human trafficking. So as we set up a border surveillance interception booth and we have about 3 staff in each of those, some booths, busy places we have 4, they go out into the traffic, they literally stop the jeepneys, they stop people who are walking, they'll stop trucks, tractors with people in them and start asking the questions. And they know what to ask. They know what to look for. They ask the questions, where are you going? Where are you coming from? Can we see your identification? And the red flags come up if they don't want to show identification or they don't want to talk about where they're going and, things like that. So they pretty quickly move in on potential trafficking situations, and then we'll bring the police into that and then start to really interrogate for that. And yeah, it's quite incredible. Each of those booths would intercept about 8 girls every month. We're currently intercepting across all of our booths way more than 100 girls every single month at the moment who would be being trafficked into the sex industry, organ trafficking, or slave labor.
Wow. So let's talk a bit about what happens after the booth. So now you've stopped these girls. So where do you go from there?
Sure. So with each of the booths we have along the border, we've got emergency accommodation connected to that. And this is where the processing starts. It's hard for these girls. They've been often deceived and lied to get them to the border or to cross the border. And this is where reality hits. You were being trafficked. That guy who was promising a love marriage, promising the world, he was a liar. He was deceiving you. That guy who was promising you a good job across the border, that was a lie. That's a deception. And they will do things like ring up and say, you know, the girl says you were promising a job in this place, and he says, I don't know the girl. And now the girl has to face reality. It's tough. Yeah. So often that's the place where you can put the girls up for 3 or 4 days and contact the family, and family will come down from Nepal. They may take days to get there. And then, of course, there's that confrontation between the girls and the family. Why were you running away if she was running away from home? And those sort of things. A common scenario is where girls are deceived by guys who are promising them a love marriage. It kind of goes into why is there so many girls trafficked and why are they so vulnerable? The poverty, the low education, and of course the arranged marriages within the culture. So polygamy is rife in Nepal. This girl may be being arranged to marry a much, much older guy who wants a second younger wife. And she knows there's no future here. She's going to be working the fields. She won't finish any education. Her children will be in the same. Then some guy comes on Facebook, promises her the world, and says, you know, let's elope. We'll have a love marriage. And now Bollywood dreams are going off. I'll meet you across the border. And that's what happens. So our staff on the border, they recognize that and they'll intercept the girls right there. And of course, then the girls who either have to go back with the family and our staff check that it's safe. There were no family members involved in the trafficking and to clear the girl to go back to the family. Maybe she goes back into the community to try and get on with life. And then there's a huge number of cases that are handed over to the authorities for further investigation, for prosecution and things like that. So there's a variety of things that happen at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And it's not just the guys, is it? It's sometimes women as well.
Absolutely, Adele. In fact, women, the major numbers are actually women who are doing the trafficking. And that's because women are more believable to these vulnerable young women. And they will take them across the border.
And we know that because in the early days we were working in some of the jails teaching, doing health promotion. And most of the women in jail were from trafficking situations. Yeah. They were the traffickers and they were in there because they'd been caught doing that.
Yeah, wow.
So it's just such a challenging situation. You know, I'm so often just taken to trying to comprehend the evil in the heart of man and women, mankind. And, you know, sometimes I think I've got a bit of a handle on it and then something will shock me again. Something will take me and I think, man, we still haven't seen the bottom of the barrel yet. To comprehend that a human could sell another human and make money off them and use them and abuse them in such incredibly horrible ways, it's still incomprehensible to me.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, for me as well. It's just to think that you can do that, and especially young girls too.
Absolutely.
How do you not have compassion?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Innocent and helpless. So, okay, so then you give these girls some accommodation. So tell us a little bit about, like, how do you then educate them and how do you get them to not fall in the same traps and snares that they did before.
Yeah. And that's a big challenge, of course, is these girls face the reality of the fact that they were about to be trafficked, and we can rescue them for that. They still have to think, well, back home isn't so great. I ran away from something back there. Am I going to go back to the same thing? So it's a challenge to keep the girls from being vulnerable again. For that reason, we set up 2 safe homes. Our safe homes can house a larger number of girls, up to 20 at a time in each of the safe homes. We keep the girls there for up to 5 months, do skill training, wake up and smell the roses training, as well as training in sewing or food preparation. We can set the girls up in micro-enterprise projects and just life training, how to handle finances, human rights, legal rights, things like that. You know, I love going to those places because we see the girls when they come in and they're fearful and they're scared and they're not sure and they've been in this vulnerable place, and at the end of their time there, they know who they are. They know who God created them to be, and they know more, have the confidence really to face life with dignity and respect. Yeah.
But if you look at the number of girls that we've trafficked compared to the number we can fit in the safe houses, we really need more safe houses. We're only 40 girls at a time. You know, we could do 100 girls at a time. That would be more helpful, but we don't have, we're still working on funding for that.
Yeah. You know, one of the things in my mind in that regard, last time we were in Nepal, we were in one of our emergency accommodation houses, and we were actually there when a family came to meet their daughter, and they'd travelled 3 days to meet her. She was being trafficked, and, you know, again, it was promised marriage, which was all a lie. You know, I said to Pastor Yubaraj at the time, I said, my heart just goes out to this girl. Is there any way we can find space for her in our safe home? He said, brother, we've got no space. They're full. We just cannot fit her in there. You know, I remember being in that room watching the interaction with this young girl and a family, and she's thinking, you know, I ran away from something there and I don't want to go back. And I couldn't help wondering, then without the next step of being able to help this girl find, you know, tools for life, she's still vulnerable.
Yeah.
But she was saved from that time, but she's still vulnerable.
Yeah, because she can fall in another trap again when you get desperate enough again.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right.
It's heartbreaking. And I think that's sometimes the frustrating part when you are doing ministry work, missions work, that kind of thing. It's because, you know, it's the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few, and it's always those limitations of provision, hands on deck, all that kind of help, you know, and that's where we can get together as the body of Christ and just be like, man, I want to be part of this. I might not be able to be in Nepal to go and help at these booths, but I sure can sow a seed, because just tell us a little bit of like what would it cost, you know, just per month for like running one of these booths or the accommodations and things.
So we have, as I said, about 3 staff in each of the booths. We've got about 48 staff altogether in Nepal. Their wages are $200 Australian a month. So to sponsor one of those counsellors means that she's available to intercept a couple of girls every single month. And that's pretty amazing. At the front line per girl, it's about 187 Australian dollars a month. That's nothing. When you realise that you've turned a life around, you've helped this person move from being in this vulnerable situation to actually being rescued from being sold as a commodity, as if she was a phone or something like that. And of course, the reason that human trafficking is overtaking the drug industry in our world is because, you know, you buy cocaine, it's up your nose, it's gone. You can sell a human again and again and again and again every single day. That's where the money is. Yeah. And people without conscience are taking advantage of that.
So let's talk about the faith as well for these girls, because you mentioned, you know, they get to find themselves in God a little bit as well. So part of this program, does that involve some faith-based stuff as well?
It does, absolutely. Now, Nepal's such an interesting country where traditionally it was a Hindu state with no options, no choices for Christianity. In fact, 25 years ago, there were mandatory jail sentences for anybody who publicly claimed to be Christian. And of course, our organization is not set up to be doing evangelism, but as girls become aware of their human rights and their legal rights, they get to understand they can also make a choice of what they believe. Now, for us in the West, that's every day. We grew up with that. What do you mean people wouldn't have a choice? The girls, as they go to a safe place, start to realize they do have a choice. And so they can make a choice to Christianity, or whatever faith they want to. We certainly respect whatever faith that girls come with, and that's fine. There's no pressure whatsoever there. But we also see the ones that choose, and we see the difference. We see the light in their eyes. We see, how open that they can be to understanding why they exist, why they were created, why they're drawing breath every single day. Yeah.
Wow.
And it makes a difference. It's a massive difference. Yeah.
Yeah, it brings hope, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Yeah, more than just the materialistic and setting them up. It's that soul healing.
That's right.
Okay, so what does Every Daughter Matters achieve in every given month? If you can give us that in a bit of figures.
This is a question I love, Adele, because we're very careful in being sure that all of our statistics and what we're doing are really aligning. So every month we get reports from the field in all of these booths, in every single one of them, and what is being achieved. We know that each booth on average will intercept about 8 girls a month plus. And we know it can be more than that. And that's just wonderful to see. There's a huge number of girls that are then reconciled back to families. There's a number of girls from that who can, where we pursue with the authorities and things like that. In March, just gone, we were able to intercept a total of 158 girls. That's more than 5 every single day. And that does something for me, because I think of 5 more today. And that's huge. Last month in March, we also celebrated our 4-year anniversary. So in total, from beginning with one booth on the border and slowly putting more and more along that border and more staff in place, we've now intercepted a total of 1,888 girls from being trafficked. And again, we love that. We love the concept of that. We're also able to bring the compliance and guarantees back to anyone who supports us that you're actually achieving the results, and we can put those reports out. These are the results. These are the girls that are being rescued each month, and that's cool.
Yeah, wow. So how does the ordinary person get on a board to just help support you guys?
There's not much we can do. I have a lot of people saying, can I get involved? And my first question is, do you know Nepali?
Of course.
And, so we use all Nepali staff, and they're people. In fact, one of the things I was saying earlier, which it thrills me, is that more than 10 of our staff along that border are girls who have actually intercepted from being trafficked. They've been through our safe home training and received more training, and now they're rescuing other girls like that. But when we say, how can we get involved as Westerners or ordinary people, we can pray. We can be aware, and awareness is in a huge area around human trafficking. Being aware that it's in our world, and not just over there, it's here in Australia. Mm-hmm. We know it's rampant in the United States and other places like that. But we can also give. Ministries like this, they cost. Yeah. It costs every single time we try to do something and employ another staff on those border booths. When we set up new booths, and we want to set up a lot more booths along that border, putting more staff in place, more safe homes. It just costs money. So, we look to God's people to say, hey, we can be a part of this. We can actually partner in this. Be an interception partner. Yeah. That means somebody who's a regular giver towards what we do, and can be a part of actually intercepting girls through giving.
Yeah, absolutely, because that is part of the kingdom. It's freely we receive and freely we give, but that's just with the gifts. But when we look at the normal materialistic parts, everything costs. It costs to run all these components, and if we do not actually open our hands and actually go, okay, Lord, where do you want us to sow? Where do you want us to tithe? How can we actually be a part of it? the kingdom funds need to come from somewhere. God can obviously drop it in our laps, but he tends to want to use humans to do it. So go figure. But ordinary people,
just like us.
absolutely,
Just like us.
just a simple obedience. And like you said, it's not even a lot. It's, if you think about $158.
87.
Oh, sorry,
187 per girl.
Yeah, but if you think about that, like that is, it's really not a lot for a lot of Westerners to actually do that, and they can change their entire life. Because you would have seen some real devastating effects even before you can intercept. So you have seen the catastrophic events of those who weren't being able to be intercepted.
We get dozens of these stories every month. We get, from our reports each month, we know the story behind most of the girls who've been trafficked. And our staff up there faithfully record that, and we know what's happening. We know it's genuine, it's on the ground. And we go there twice a year to ensure that what we think is happening is actually happening, and affirms every single time.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so thankful for guys like you guys that are just obedient to the Lord and say, here we are, God, use us. Because like you say, it is at a cost to you guys as well. It's horrible what happens to these people, but also I think about you guys, these stories that keep you up at night, that keeps you, the things that you give up as well, because it's a cost to you, and people don't always see that as well. So just thank you. I just really want to say thank you. We're very grateful for people like you guys.
There's absolutely no regrets when you walk with God and you serve God. He's faithful every single day. We've never found a day that the Lord hasn't been faithful in 40 years of ministry now.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's incredible. Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, I would just like to ask you guys if you have a few bits of tips for awareness for the Westerners, right? Because not everyone is going to be in Nepal, but like you said, human trafficking is in our own countries. And so just things the community can watch out for, and just even tips of, what to look out for, because there are many who would be vulnerable as well, so they don't fall in traps and things like that.
Here in Australia, we know from the current statistics, there's about 41,000 people involved in trafficking situations in our country right now. And they're brought in for a number of reasons. Some of it is forced marriages and arranged marriages, we know that. Some is big business or even the farming communities bringing in cheaper labour from overseas and threatening them, underpaying them and using them. That's actually human trafficking. And then, of course, the organised crime areas of bringing people in under false pretenses of student visas or different kinds of visas like that. And those girls are farmed into the brothels all over the country. So the thing to look out for, when you go and get your nails done and you find there's a dozen girls in that nail centre and some guys going back and forward and not letting them get into deeper conversations, ask the question, and then go to the police or go to the government anti-human trafficking or anti-slavery department and phone them up and ask that question. I had a guy locally said to me he saw people going onto a work site on a bus, and a couple of buses of workers turning up, obviously from overseas. He started to ask the question, and of course they were being trafficked, things like that. We know in North Australia, around some of the remote communities, there's travelling brothels going around. Report them, speak up about them. Be aware that this is happening. And friends, if you're travelling overseas into vulnerable locations, look out, be aware. Do not be a soft target. Do not allow your children, your girls to be a soft target. Every daughter matters. We don't want to see one more trafficked. Yeah.
I think one of the areas you can, raise awareness is within your own family as well. If your children are travelling, just teach them about human trafficking so that they're aware and they're not going to fall into that trap, because it's out there.
Yeah.
And young girls, young guys even, are very vulnerable to it.
Yep. Human trafficking is not a pleasant conversation. It's not a pleasant evening meal conversation. But I think more and more in our world, with the craziness that's happening in our world, we have to bring that conversation to the fore. We have to be able to talk about it more openly and it's a part of the education and awareness within our families as well. So make it a dinner conversation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It is that time that we're in this planet, you know, that it is important to have those conversations. Rather, teach your kids well, teach your family well, and then at least they know what to look out for, rather than trying to pretend these things aren't happening or not wanting to talk about it because it's a heavy conversation. So no, thank you so much, guys. It's been such an honor and blessing. And so for you guys, if you want to jump on board as well and just support with prayers, encouragement, sowing, tithing, you know, to support these guys, I'll put the link down for you in the description of this video, and you'll see it here in the video as well. So you can just go to everydaughtermatters.org.au. Yeah, there we go. So thank you so much, guys.